Welcome to the Car Design Academy intermediate level course focused on automotive sketching and rendering skills using digital media. So in the last demo, I demonstrated the use of the Symmetry tool in Sketchbook Pro, which I think is a fantastic tool, especially when it comes to developing the face of a vehicle, a symmetrical front-end graphic. And we also talked a lot about how the face of the car is really an extension of the emotional character of the owner or the driver, and it's really an extension of the identity of that person, what kind of person they're trying to convey to the world. And so with that, I wanted to get into a quick rendering demo, and so I'm going to go ahead and pick. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. And then I'm going to pick the one I want, which is going to be the center car. The center car is the closest to all of the other sketches that I've been doing, this very, very sexy, voluptuous vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and just blow up the image to full page. And what I want to do is just demonstrate how to use the Symmetry tool in a rendering setting. So, okay. And I'm going to turn Symmetry back on again. As you can see, I have with this little control point here, I can move the Symmetry line around and place it wherever I want. Now I'm going to try to align it as best I can with the original sketch. And then what I'm going to do is do my cleanup sketch. So I'm going to turn the opacity way down on the original sketch, and then I'm just going to add a new layer and do my overlay sketch. So I'm just going to do that really quick using the number 1 pencil. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my graphic layer. So first thing I'm going to do is just turn off the original sketch, and I'm going to do my graphic layer. So I'm going to go to the layer below, turn the opacity down a bit. I'm going to turn the opacity up to full on that. I'm also going to add another layer of transparency for the glass. So here is where I'm going to indicate the interior. Again, using my Symmetry tool, I can save a lot of time. You can see now the glass is starting to have more of a transparent feeling to that. So using my fountain pen once again, I'm going to go in and add my lighting graphic. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and go back into my other graphic layer, and I'm just going to darken some of those elements again. So it looks like that surface is tunneling in to a deep hole. Okay, so now we have our graphic layer. Okay, so now we're going to start adding some color. So to do that, I'm going to turn off my Symmetry. Again, we're actually going to bring in a light source from the side. So I'm just going to draw an arrow. This is going to represent the source of light coming in from one side of the car, and we're going to use that as a tool to highlight certain surfaces and bring shadow to other surfaces across the hood, so you can really get a feeling for the contours of the hood. So I'm just going to add another layer. As you can see, I'm working below my graphic layer, right in here. Again, I'm going to do this as a red car, starting with my airbrush, and I'm going to use a deep sort of burgundy as a starting point. Go in with a very large airbrush and just start to just darken in the whole area of the vehicle, but I'm going to let it fade to white on the edges. And the reason why is because that white environment is going to start to have more and more of an effect on the surfaces of the vehicle. Now, as you can see, I'm using this deep red I'm going to fade that to a bit of a cooler tone. So I'm going to switch that over to like a purple or even a blue. Actually, I'll just do blue because it'll make purple once I mix it in there. And I'm just going to fade the upper portion of that. So as the surface transitions over the over the hood and starts to face more of the sky, it's gonna turn more and more blue. So, and then I'll actually add a brighter sky tone at the very top. Okay. Okay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and clean up some of that using a smaller eraser. I want it to fade still. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and add the bright red. So without adding any layers, I've built up this using the same principles of metallic paint. I've done this sort of earth tone, sky tone thing, and now I'm adding my bright pearlescent glow. Given the fact that the sun is coming from the right side, I'm going to give it a bit of a bias towards the right side. So you can see how this thing is really starting to have some glow to it. So we basically created our egg, okay? Now I'm going to go in and erase the periphery of the car, get it a little bit cleaned up so it's not so it's not fading off the edges of the car quite so much. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding layers to define those surfaces. So let's start with the hood. I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to go in with my bright red and highlight the left side fender. And as you can see, the surface, it really makes it look like that far side of the hood is facing back towards the sunlight. So then I'm going to go ahead and pick the color of the sort of the darkest part of the sky tone. Use the color picker. I'm going to pick this color here and go ahead and make it a bit deeper there. And I'm going to do just the exact opposite on this fender, so it's clearly facing away from the light. But then I'm going to throw a little bit of the mid red back on. And then I'm going to go in another layer and using a transparent black with a little bit of transparency to the layer. I'm going to really start to deepen that intake below. You can see I'm using the soft eraser. It just gives it it's a little bit easier to control the edge. You don't have to be quite so precise. Okay, so then I'm going to add a little bit more detail to that lower. I'm going to add back a little bit more light. So going back in with my airbrush, going back to my bright red. I want this side of the center section to go bright red because it's facing towards the light, and also on this far side here. But then on the far side, I'm just going to go ahead and add some transparent black. Go a little bit bigger on that airbrush. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more of the bright red at the very bottom of those intakes, right in here, so it starts to kind of bend out and catch some more light again. Turn my opacity up on the brush. So I'm going to go, I did want to add a little bit of detail on the hood here as well, so I'm going to go ahead and add another layer, and I'm going to go color pick that near the right side fender, and just put in a thin strip of airbrush along, actually this side, because it's facing away from the sun. Just going to break off that edge. And then going with my bright red on this side. Okay, well let's just go in and add, I'm going to go in above the graphic layer and I'm going to add some white highlighting. So this is going to be my sunlight, my hot spots. So going with a white airbrush, add a hot spot kind of where the sun's going to hit the front end. And just to give it a bit of reflectivity, I'm going to break off those edges. Then where it starts to go into the fender, I'm going to break that off, or I'm going to sort of bend it around that fender form and show up again on the headlamp. Now we're going to put some on this side. The surface that's facing back towards the sunlight is going to get also a white halo. I might put a little bit on this as well. Let's turn down the opacity on that. That's picking up some white as well. I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to turn the opacity down a bit, and I'm going to add an airbrush glow to the windscreen and add a little bit more fade on the far side of the greenhouse. So it really starts to have a transparent, reflective quality to it. I'm going to add a little bit of halo to some of these lower extremities as well. You can see how very quickly I can get a very strong read on the face of the vehicle when it comes to light and shadow. I want that strong 3-element lighting theme. So then, as you remember, I mentioned that the shadow was not going to be symmetrical. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch an asymmetrical shadow, which is going to take the plan shape of that car and just shift it over according to where that light source is headed. So clean up a few things here. So I'm just going to go in with a white pencil, just add a little bit more detail. Just adding a little bit of a white edge on certain areas just helps to bring dimension. And that, my friends, is how you do a very quick, very loose front view in red on a white background with the light source coming in from the right side. So we have symmetry in the drawing of the car and in the graphic layer, but we're turning off symmetry and really using a side-facing light source to highlight the contours of the hood.